In 1963, Kenya became independent, but one powerful family never gave up control. They didn't need to win every election. Instead, they built quiet power. Behind the scenes, they took over the banks, they owned the land, they controlled the milk, the media, and even school books. From state house to school exams, the Kenyatta family became part of everything. For decades, their name was tied to leadership, wealth, and history. But not everyone knew how deep their reach really was. Because this wasn't just about politics. It was about building a private empire inside a public nation. And today, their influence still shapes what millions of Kenyans see, hear, and learn, often without question. So how did one dynasty gain this much control? Without most people even noticing. In 1963, when Kenya became independent, Jomo Kenyatta became its first president. Many saw him as the father of the nation, a leader who helped free Kenya from British rule. But while the world watched his speeches and politics, something else was happening quietly in the background. Jomo Kenyatta began buying huge pieces of land. He took over coastlines, farmlands, and ranches, some of the best in the country. In some cases, this land was bought from the British. In others, it was simply taken or transferred through power and connections. Over time, this land became the base of a private family empire. It included coffee plantations, real estate, and business partnerships with companies across Kenya. By the time Jomo died in 1978, his family had control over tens of thousands of acres, worth billions today. But what happened next would change the country even more. When Jomo passed away, his son, Uhuru Kenyatta, was still young. He didn't take over politically right away. Instead, the family quietly expanded their business power. They began moving into banks, media, insurance, and import-export. They stayed close to every president that followed. And when Uhuru finally became president himself in 2013, the family already had decades of power and wealth behind them. The land Jomo bought after independence wasn't just property. It was the foundation of a dynasty that would influence every corner of Kenyan life. After Jomo Kenyatta died in 1978, many thought the Kenyatta family's power might fade. But one person quietly stepped in to keep the dynasty alive. Mama Ngina Kenyatta, Jomo's widow. She never ran for office. She gave few interviews, avoided public speeches, and stayed out of politics. But behind the scenes, she became the true guardian of the family empire. Mama Ngina controlled the land. She oversaw vast properties in places like Kiambu, Mombasa, and Nakuru. She managed farms, real estate, and large businesses. With her sharp sense for loyalty and trust, she built a network of allies, from senior officials to top business leaders. Her power didn't come from titles, it came from relationships. She knew which politicians to support, which business partners to trust, and when to stay quiet. And she made sure the Kenyatta family name remained strong and respected, even feared in Kenyan society. Over the years, her reputation grew. To many older leaders, she was Mama wa Taifa, mother of the nation. She was welcomed at State House, consulted during crises, and treated like royalty wherever she went. While presidents changed, Moi, Kibaki, then others, Mama Ngina stayed in the background, always close to the center of power. She didn't need to speak loudly. She let her influence speak for itself. By the 1990s, the Kenyatta family had quietly become one of the wealthiest in Africa, owning banks, media outlets, milk factories, and more. But it wasn't until the next generation stepped forward that the quiet reign turned into open leadership. Because while Mama Ngina protected the family's legacy, it would be her son, Uhuru Kenyatta, who would bring the dynasty back to State House. Behind every decision, deal, or handshake, there was one silent force keeping everything in place: Mama Ngina. In 2013, after decades of quiet influence, the Kenyatta family returned to the top. Uhuru Kenyatta, son of Jomo Kenyatta, became the fourth president of Kenya. It was more than just an election. It was power coming full circle, from father to son. But this time, it wasn't just about politics. It was about business and politics working together. During Uhuru's time in office, the family empire grew fast. Brookside Dairy, already a major milk company, expanded into Uganda and Tanzania. NCBA Bank, partly owned by the family, became one of the biggest banks in East Africa. A massive new project called Northland City, a planned city near Nairobi, was launched, covering over 11,000 acres. These were not small moves. They were big, bold, and carefully timed. all while Uhuru sat in the highest office in the land. For many, this raised serious questions. Was this the work of a strong leader, or the rise of dynasty economics, where state power feeds private wealth? Critics pointed out that public debt increased during his presidency. Cost of living rose. Youth unemployment remained high, yet the Kenyatta family's wealth kept growing. Uhuru played the role of both president and businessman. He spoke about fighting corruption, but his own family businesses thrived during his rule, largely untouched by investigations or criticism. This mix of politics and profit became a new kind of power. No longer just behind the scenes like his mother, Uhuru was at the front, signing deals, building projects, shaping policy. But the deeper question remained. Was he leading for the country or for a family legacy that had started in 1963? The Kenyatta name was now more than just history. It was a brand built on land, milk, banks, and influence. And while his term eventually ended, the dynasty's reach did not. One of the biggest parts of the Kenyatta family's power isn't in politics. It's in business and culture, things people use and trust every day. Let's start with milk. The family owns Brookside Dairy, which controls over 45% of Kenya's milk market. This means that nearly 1 in every 2 milk packets in Kenyan homes comes from a Kenyatta company. And it's not just local. Brookside has expanded into Uganda, Tanzania, Nigeria, and Egypt. It's a quiet empire built on something as simple as milk. Next is media. The Kenyatta family owns Media Max, which runs K24 TV, Kamimi FM, and People Daily newspaper. Through these channels, they shape how stories are told, which news is shared, and what voices are heard. Media isn't just business, it's influence. But perhaps the most surprising part, education. The family owns Paponi School, one of Kenya's most elite private schools. And even more quietly, they have ties to textbook publishing, meaning they help decide what children read in school. That's not just profit, that's cultural programming, guiding how people think, learn, and grow. Taken together, these are not random businesses. They form a triangle of influence. Milk feeds the body, media shapes the mind, education builds the future. It's a soft kind of power, not forced by law, but deeply rooted in everyday life. It doesn't need speeches or elections. It works through habits, trust, and routine. So how deep does this quiet control go? When one family can touch what you eat, what you watch, and what your kids learn, it's not just business anymore. It's a legacy of control, passed from one generation to the next, not through politics alone, but through the very structure of society. The Kenyatta family isn't just powerful. They're among Africa's richest dynasties, with an estimated net worth of $2.7 billion as of 2025. And this wealth shows up everywhere. From large estates in Nairobi to coastal villas at the ocean's edge. From ranches with thousands of acres to private airstrips for personal jets. This is a lifestyle that even most presidents in the world can't imagine. Their private jets fly across the globe, quietly, but with full VIP treatment. Then there's Heritage Hotels, one of Kenya's top hotel chains. These luxury resorts host royalty, diplomats, and billionaires from across the world. They're not just tourism hotspots. They're centers of soft power and global networking. Meanwhile, the family's business empire keeps growing. From real estate to banking, from energy to agriculture, they've built a web of influence across sectors. But with Uhuru Kenyatta no longer in office, many people ask, who's running all this now? The answer isn't simple. The Kenyatta empire is run like a corporate family dynasty. Different relatives manage different pieces. One may oversee Brookside Dairy, another may handle hotels or finance. Some sit quietly on corporate boards, never in the headlines, but always in the picture. At the center, Mama Ngina Kenyatta still plays a key role. Her quiet authority keeps the family tight-knit and the network strong. This isn't just about money, it's about economic control that outlasts political office. The presidency may come and go, but the businesses remain. They fund allies, shape policy, and build loyalty across generations. And in a country where politics and business often move together, being a billionaire dynasty isn't just personal success, it's national influence, without ever needing a campaign. So the real question isn't how much they own, it's how much of Kenya moves when they decide to act. While Uhuru Kenyatta stood in front of the cameras as president, his younger brother Muhoho Kenyatta stayed in the background. But make no mistake, Muhoho is the engine behind the family's business empire. He doesn't give press interviews. He avoids political rallies. He's rarely seen in public. But from the shadows, he runs the core operations. Brookside Dairy, NCBA Bank, Heritage Hotels, real estate deals, foreign investments. Muhoho helps manage, expand, and protect these assets with quiet precision. Known as a silent operator, Muhoho handles the business strategy. He works with lawyers, investors, and foreign partners to grow the empire across borders. He meets with global CEOs, not politicians. While others chase headlines, he focuses on profit margins, supply chains, and long-term influence. International trade deals, licensing agreements, investment portfolios. That's Muhoho's world. Even political allies refer to him as the real power in the Kenyatta family business. But the public rarely hears his voice. Why? Because staying hidden is the strategy. If no one sees you, no one blames you. If you don't speak, you can't be quoted. And if you don't run for office, you're never voted out. Many Kenyans know Uhuru, some know Mama Ngina, but very few know Muhoho, the man who moves billions without making noise. His influence is quiet but strong. He doesn't shape policy on the podium. He shapes industries in the boardroom. And that's what makes him so powerful. In a world of politics and public drama, Muhoho represents a different kind of control. Private, careful, and deeply effective. Now, it's the younger generation stepping forward. Leading the way is Ngina Kenyatta, Uhuru's daughter. But she isn't running for office. She isn't building malls or buying farms. Instead, she's focusing on impact investing, climate projects, and youth empowerment. Through clean water programs, education funds, and sustainable farming, the Kenyatta brand is being repackaged. From wealth to wellness, they're funding climate resilience projects, launching startups in healthcare and education, partnering with nonprofits to support women and young entrepreneurs. It's not about old power, it's about new influence. But make no mistake, this is still control. Instead of owning milk companies, they now invest in green agriculture. Instead of political speeches, they sponsor youth innovation labs. Instead of controlling land, they fund land restoration. This shift is smart and subtle. By focusing on soft power, the family keeps its place in national life, but with a friendlier face. It's no longer about being Kenya's richest family. It's about being seen as Kenya's future leaders in innovation and good causes. The Kenyatta dynasty has quietly mastered 3 key forms of control. 1. Control of land. From the 1960s, the Kenyattas began collecting land, coastal plots, ranches, farms, and prime real estate. This land wasn't just for wealth, it gave them influence over agriculture, housing, tourism, and even transport routes. In Kenya, land is power, and the Kenyattas have more of it than almost anyone else. 2. Control of narrative. They control how stories are told. Through media houses, school textbooks, and even cultural sponsorships, they shape what people see and believe. Owning a TV station or publishing house may seem simple, but it lets you decide what becomes news and what doesn't. This power over the national conversation has kept their image strong and criticism weak. 3. Control of future leadership. They're not just holding on to the past, they're grooming the next generation, quietly. Through elite education, impact businesses, and philanthropic projects, the family is placing itself in the future of youth leadership, climate policy, and global partnerships. While some members hold no formal office, they still sit on boards, attend diplomatic events, and fund policy think tanks. You just saw how one family quietly shaped almost every part of Kenya's system, from land and milk to media and leadership. And it's not just politics, it's generational power. Built step by step over decades. They didn't need to win every vote. They just needed to control the tools of influence, land, story, succession, and now with the next generation moving into impact investing, education, and climate work, the dynasty is evolving. Softer on the outside, stronger than ever inside. So here's the big question. Is this true leadership or just quiet domination? Is Kenya a democracy or a dynasty in disguise? We want to hear from you. Drop a comment with your thoughts. Was this power earned, inherited, or hidden? And if you thought this was deep, wait till you see what we uncovered in The Billionaires Who Built Nigeria's Shadow Economy. It's a story of silent deals, oil money, and invisible kings. Subscribe for more stories the headlines never show. Like if you learned something new, Share if you think more people need to see this. And don't forget to comment below. Should power like this be celebrated or challenged?